G'day there guys, I want to speak to your manager. Back at it again with another episode of r/EntitledParents. Now if you enjoy today's content, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and enjoy today's bloody Karen stories. Posted by user FredZRed. Titled, Mother made her 10-year-old daughter cut her hair and threw a tantrum when it wasn't good enough. I've got the pleasure of having a Karen as a mother, and you guys seem to like these stories, so here's another one. A little backstory before I begin. My mum has hated me my whole life, favouring my little sister over me and mentally and physically abusing me most of my life, until I left to live with my dad. I spent a lot of my young life trying to win her affection by doing the same things as my sister did, like going to pony club when I didn't really have to, until I eventually gave up and didn't care what she thought anymore. My mum is 5'8", broad-shouldered and a bit overweight, but strong from doing farm work most of her life. Needless to say, I was scared of her back then. This happened when I was 10 years old in 2000. My mum is a huge choosing beggar and hates spending money when she doesn't have to. This includes going to a hairdresser. My sister was 7 at the time, so I was her next option for this mistake that she only made once. She came into my room and asked if I would cut her hair for her. I really didn't want to practically beg her not to make me do it, but I was still in that stage of wanting her approval, so I reluctantly said yes. Big mistake. So, not knowing what I was doing, I cut her hair, and big surprise, I did a horrible job. It was salvable if she ever went to the hairdresser to get it fixed, but she was too cheap and stubborn to do that. I was grounded for the rest of the week, except for going to school, and was made to do all of my sister's chores with a bit extra, such as shoveling the horse crap in the paddocks into a bucket and carting them to the bin. Anyone who's ever smelt fresh horse poo will understand why this task was exceptionally bad, and any other inventive chores she could come up with. For the rest of the week, she stomped around the house saying snarky comments like, "Why can't she be like her sister? At least she would have done a better job than OP. I can't go out looking like this. If we starve, then I know whose fault it is. Bloody useless kids around here. Why don't I have enough money? Oh, I know why." Meaning it was my fault that she didn't have a job and relied on my dad's child support payments for income. It wasn't until I was 15 that I finally stood up to her and her BS, which involved a glass jar to her head. She didn't touch me again after that, and I moved in with my dad not long after that. My life is much better now that I'm not in contact with her. I'm mentally stable with no long-lasting issues from her abuse. I'm more stable than my mother, and I refuse to let her break me. My sister and I are good friends now, and she hates our poor excuse for a mother just as much as I do. Keep an eye out for more stories about my entitled mother, as there are many. Thanks for reading. Posted by user Orion Levi 2, titled, Living with a Cove Idiot. Disclaimer, I'm about ready to cry in anger over this, so I apologize for any mistakes in grammar and spelling. So I, unfortunately, am the offspring of the entitled one here, and it brings me great shame to consider him family. He's the type of person who is so set in his ways that he refuses to listen to reason. A stereotypical boomer, and because of that, my relationship with him is strained. So I had to wake him up for work since he'd broken his phone yesterday, 6 in a year, so I was his alarm. He asked me where his face mask was, which I told him where, and he began to complain about having to wear it at work, and how when he goes out he doesn't wear one. Now, it's worth noting that in my state, it's mandatory to wear a mask into any establishment. I called him out on it. Big mistake, and I knew it. And he began to tramp about his freedoms, which ticked me off. People are dying and being permanently affected by this, yet he refuses to act like it's a big deal. Eventually, things went south, and he brought up how experts are always changing opinions, saying masks aren't 100% effective. Not wrong, but he pretends that it's not helpful. That 99% of people are like him, and he refuses to acknowledge his actions risk the lives of others. Then he tries gaslighting me about how there was a news story about a newborn who died in an ambulance since the hospital was saving beds for these sick patients, and asking me if I thought that was right, implying I wouldn't feel bad for any injustice like that. So I told him about a case where an 8-year-old caught the virus and died after her mum brought her to the park and travelled, and he just kept saying deaths were going to happen. I tried to get it through to this thick, fudging-skulled idiot, but the conversation went nowhere except for circles. I made sure to bring up how childish he was acting, and how he went into active duty/combat for his country, and yet still refused to mildly inconvenience himself to protect other innocent people. He made sure to say that only my generation thinks the way I do, like he usually does, saying that all his generation thinks like him, and it's just frustrating. I'm just so fed up being almost 40 years younger than him and still being the only adult in my household. He has no consideration for others, and I can't wait to be free from this hell. Posted by user FredZRed, titled, "My entitled mother tried to kill me. This is why I'm no longer in contact with her." I've posted a few stories about things my entitled mother has done and why I no longer speak to her, and I've had some people say I should give her a second chance. Here's a list of the reasons why that will never happen. It's in sections, so it's easier for you to read. My sister will be referred to as Sis. 1. Played favorites and destroyed my belongings at age 6. I first noticed my mother was playing favorites, my younger sister, who's 3 years younger than me, when I was 6 years old, Christmas of 1996. My sister got all the big presents, and I got a few cheap bracelets and an ornament. My dad bought us rollerblades for Christmas that year, and the next day we were outside trying them out. My sister, 3 at the time, fell over and hit her head and began crying. My mother came out of the house and began screaming at me, assuming I pushed her, which I didn't. She wasn't hearing it though, and sent me to my room. A few minutes later, she came into my room in a rage and smashed all of my belongings, including my Christmas presents. Half an hour later, she came in and said, her words exactly, "Your room's a frickin' pigsty. Clean it up now." When I asked her about it the next day, she claimed to not know what I was talking about. 2. She freaked out when I got my period for the first time. If you've seen the movie Carrie, you will understand what happened. My mother isn't as psychotic as Carrie's mum, and she's not religious, but she went really weird. She started asking if I'd had sex, how heavy it was, if I knew what it meant, but she wouldn't tell me, if I was ashamed of myself, and a lot of other weird questions. And every time I'd ask her to buy me pads, she never would. She would just throw money at me and say she didn't want to know. And there were occasions when I had to ask my friend's mum for pads because my mum had no money or wouldn't spend her child support money on me because I'm not worth it. But if my sister wanted anything, she'd get it for her immediately. 3. Wouldn't call an ambulance when I fell off a horse, but called one when the same thing happened to my sister. I was about 13 when this happened. My mum and my sister were really into riding horses, but I never was. But I was so desperate for my mum's approval that I started going to Pony Club with them. One day, my horse got spooked by something and bucked me off. He was a really big horse. I almost landed on top of a barbed wire fence and was knocked out for a few minutes. I woke up to my mother screaming at me, saying, "What the bloody frickin' hell do you think you're doing, you stupid..." She didn't even help me up. A few months later, the same thing happened to my sister, but this time my mother freaked out and came into the house screaming at me to get off my useless lazy ass and help my sister while my mum called an ambulance. My sister wasn't hurt. She'd fallen off a small horse into a pile of dirt, but she was milking the attention for everything it was worth. She was taken to the hospital and didn't go to school for the rest of the week. 4. Takes down my door because it made a noise when I closed it. When I was 12, I got the privilege of having a bedroom door. The latch wouldn't click shut unless you gave it a harder push, and it would swing open if it wasn't clicked shut. My mum refused to fix it. One day when I was closing the door so I could change clothes, it made a little too much noise for my mother's liking. She burst into my door, screaming at me to shut the door up. Then she took out the hinges and took it away. From 12 until 14, I had no bedroom door and no privacy to change my clothes or sleep with the door closed. 5. My sister and her friend broke into the school, but it was somehow my fault. This happened when I was 13. It was during school holidays, and my sister and her BFF broke into the school and wrote out merit awards to each other, which was obviously a stupid idea, and is how they were caught. After this happened, I got the feeling that my mum was angry at me for what they'd done. This was confirmed many years later. The next story is a continuation to this. 6. Admitted to my friend's mum how much she hated me. I always knew that my mum didn't like me, but the most I was ever told was that I was an accident and that she regretted having me, but I heard from my best friend's mum a few years ago exactly what my mum thought of me. My friend was over for a sleepover one weekend, and my mum was talking to my friend's mum. These are some of the things my mum said. "I just can't believe that sis would do something like that. It's more of what OP would do. I had never done anything that would give her that idea. I don't know why anyone would be friends with OP. If I were in school, I wouldn't be friends with her." 7. Destroyed my belongings because she couldn't find the broom. This happened one summer weekend day when I was 13. My mum burst into my room and demanded to know where the broom was. I said I didn't know and I hadn't been outside all day. She accused me of hiding the broom and began throwing my belongings at me. In fear of my life, I ran out of the house and ran to the police station at the other end of town. This was in 2003 and I didn't own a mobile phone. When we got back to the house and the police asked her what happened, she put on her sweet and innocent face and said, "I don't know what she's talking about. She must be on her period or something." The policeman believed her and wouldn't hear my side of the story, and he left. 8. Her verbal abuse turned physical. Her abuse was mostly verbal and throwing things at me until I was 14. She started getting into these fits of rage over nothing. Couldn't find the remote equals a slap in the face. Got angry over nothing equals pushing me into a wall and throwing me and my sister out of the house. Couldn't find something to watch on TV equals punch me in the face, push me on the ground, and kick me in the face. Her horse didn't win at the show equals my fault. Her car won't start equals my fault. Run out of money equals my fault. And the list goes on. She did this until I was 15, when I had enough. I warned her, take one step further and you'll regret it. Needless to say, she regretted it. The glass jar smashed to the side of her face gave her the message. She never touched me again after that, and I moved in with my dad. 9. Physically abused my autistic brother. I won't get into too much detail with this one, but I found out a few years ago that my mum used to rip chunks of hair out of his head and many other atrocious things. 10. Wanted to turn off life support when I was in a coma. When I was 17, New Year's Eve 2007, I suffered a spinal cord injury and brain injury after falling off a roof. I was placed under an induced coma. My dad was with me the whole time, but it took my mum 3 weeks to come, even though her partner at the time could have paid to get her there sooner. All she knew was that I'd had an accident and was in a coma. She came with things to bury me with. My parents were given the option to turn the life support off. My dad said no, having faith that I'd pull through. But my mum said yes, and threw a tantrum when she didn't get her wish. So instead of burying me with what she brought, they were placed on my bed while I was in a coma. Rehabilitation was hard and traumatic, so I don't like talking about it, so I'll skip ahead to the next thing. 11. Threw a tantrum after my dad told me. While I was in rehab after my injury, my dad let it slip that my mum wanted to turn the life support off on me. Up until this point, I didn't know this. I called my mum and told her I never want to see her again, and that if I'm dead to her, then she's dead to me. And 12. Tried to steal money from her kids after our dad dies. In 2009, my dad and my uncle, his brother, died in a plane crash. I was 19, my sister 16, and my brother 22. My mother was there the next day to offer her support, but nobody wanted them there. My entire family despises her. She started asking questions about the will and his assets, which is information we didn't give her. We didn't know the cause of death for 3 weeks after his death, and lo and behold, she got nothing. The will was written before my parents had even met. The will gave everything to my dad's siblings, and they gave it all to me and my siblings, so long as we promised that our mother got nothing. She's tried a few times in the past few years to get money from us, but we won't talk to her. I haven't spoken to my mother in about 7 years, and I don't ever plan on seeing her again. She's a toxic person, and life is better without her. My brother still talks to her from time to time, but me, my sister, and the rest of the family want nothing to do with her. And me and my sister are really close. She's not entitled, and I hold no resentment towards her. I love her to bits. Thanks for reading. Edit. Thank you all for your supportive comments. I am in a much better place in life now, and have thrown away the resentment towards her. That's not to say I have forgiven her, as I never will, but I know that holding on to anger and hatred will only make me miserable. Through the trauma, I found strength, and although this isn't something I would wish on anyone, I am more resilient because of it. I will not let her break me. Posted by user 3bikes, titled Entitled Parent on the Bus. This happened yesterday, on my phone, so formatting might be a bit rubbish. I had to go for a hospital appointment yesterday, which is about 2 hours on 2 buses. Not currently allowed to drive. Various lovely things wrong with me, such as a heart condition and a damaged leg from being an idiot 25 years ago. Yesterday was the cardiac clinic for the first time since the lockdown. A few stops after mine, Karen got on the bus. She had a pushchair and 3 children. The bus layout is such that I was sitting in a seat on the opposite side of the bay where pushchairs go, when not needed by a wheelchair, and it has 4 seats. So she parks the pushchair and calls her children to come sit down, followed promptly by, "You! Change seats!" Why? You're stopping my kids from sitting down. I don't mind them. I've already had COVID, so they can't infect me. And boom. Karen starts screeching about me being a carrier who shouldn't be on a bus and hitting me with her fake Gucci bag that was easily blocked. The bus driver noticed the action going on and pulled up at the next stop, got out of his cab and put on his face shield to tell her to calm down or get off. Her response to this was to remove her mask, cough at him, and spit on him while continue to try to physically assault me. The driver retreated to his cab to make a phone call, while I continued to enjoy Karen at full flow. 4 minutes later, 4:26 p.m., by their log, a police car turned up. A quick assessment got them to offer her the chance to leave, so she coughed and spit on them instead. I've given a statement and am happy for an assault charge to be brought by the law. She managed a small graze to my cheek, so apparently actual bodily harm stands in the UK. TLDR, disabled sat in the disabled seat, not disabled Karen goes berserk. Posted by user AlyssHart101, titled Entitled Ex-Friend Wants Me to Break Up with My Partner of 5 years to Date Her. So, a bit of background. I've known entitled friend EF, 27 years old, since high school. This was also about 4 years ago. The rest of the cast is me, yours truly, 26 years old, and P, my partner, now spouse, 30 years old. So, entitled friend and I had recently gotten in touch, and we were talking about going to a convention together. We lived in separate states. Partner and entitled friend were mainly in contact doing the planning since it was for my birthday. The only thing I got to plan was the cosplay outfits. It was determined that partner and I would be in the same state for a week, and we'd tour the state for 4 days before going to the convention. Entitled friend understood this, and the plan was to meet up Friday. So the week finally comes, and we're touring the state when I get a text from entitled friend, saying, "Hey me, I was wondering if you guys would come on Thursday, as you could have dinner with my family. Let me talk to partner, and I'll see, since the hotel reservations and events were planned by him." I talked to P, and he said no, just simply because there were no other bookings available at the hotel we booked at the convention, and he had plans for that day. I say, "Hey entitled friend, we can't come any earlier. The hotel is booked up, and plus, we have plans. We'll see you on Friday as planned. I didn't get a response from Entitled Friend, and we left it at that since we were exploring a national park. Friday came around, and we checked into our hotel and proceeded to meet up with Entitled Friend. The hotel was also where the convention was. Entitled Friend says, "Hey, me," and she gave me an enthusiastic hug. "Hey, Entitled Friend, this is Partner," and I proceed to put my arm around him. "Hey." We proceeded to walk around the convention, looking at vendors, taking pictures, and having a good time. As the convention went on, Entitled Friend was getting clingy and would try to come between P and I. We would be holding hands, and she would try to walk through them, etc. At first, Partner and I brushed it off, thinking she was just playing around. She started to get more aggressive, practically trying to drag me away for some girl time. Then she brought up having me come for dinner at her house. I told her that Partner and I would need to discuss it and see when we would be available. We talked and determined that we would be available on Sunday since we had plans at the convention on Saturday night. Entitled Friend wasn't happy, but seemed to understand at the time. Sunday came, and we proceeded to check out of the hotel and enjoyed the last little bit of the convention before heading to Entitled Friend's house. We meet up with her parents, and Partner had a good conversation with Entitled Friend's dad. Entitled Friend is being super clingy at this point and is practically trying to have me sit in her lap. Partner sees me a little uncomfortable with this and says, "Hey me, you about ready? We better head out if we want to get home at a decent time." I'm relieved that he noticed and said, "Alright, yes, we need to head out." We tell everyone bye, and Entitled Friend says we have to wait and runs off to her room to get something for me. She says, "Here, don't drop this until later," and proceeds to hand me a thick envelope. I say, "Okay." I took the envelope and we proceeded to pull out of the driveway and on our way home. A while into the long drive home, curiosity got the better of me and I opened the envelope. I read it over, and it was a multiple typed page letter confessing her feelings for me and how disrespected Entitled Friend felt and how she deserved her turn since Partner got his turn for 5 years. I'm in shock. She was pretty much coming out to me, which I respected since I'm demisexual myself. I proceeded to message her and stated such, but was not going to break up with Partner simply because Entitled Friend wanted her turn. I was hurt. I'm not a ride or a possession. Entitled Friend proceeded to say how Partner was emotionally abusive and that she would treat me better. Partner pulled over when he saw how distressed I was, and after I told him what was said, proceeded to text Entitled Friend and stated I was not a ride or a toy and was to be respected. She then texted me that if I wasn't willing to leave Partner for Entitled Friend, then she would no longer be my friend. Partner and I proceeded with our drive back home, and we never heard from Entitled Friend again. Partner and I married a year later. Posted by user sbrooks0709. Titled, Entitled Karen put an entire cancer ward at risk of COVID. This happened at a local hospital at the beginning of the pandemic. Being a top-rated teaching hospital in North Carolina, whose doctors are working closely with the state government to try to control the spread, the hospital immediately initiated a lockdown, especially in the cancer ward. Only one visitor was allowed at a time. Well, one entitled Karen wasn't having that. First, she berated the people at the door, explaining the policy. When that didn't work, she snuck in when another group of people walked in and made her way to the cancer ward. A few minutes later, she walked up to the nurse's desk to ask for a mask because she had a little cough. She was escorted down to the ER and given a COVID test. She was positive. So because she just had to visit someone in the hospital, she put an entire ward of immunocompromised people at risk. I never heard anything else about this, but I really wanted to know that she had been charged with a crime. Posted by user StacyB292. Titled, Entitled Mother waits until I go to the bathroom and then lets her kid eat all of my food at a restaurant. Hey guys, so it's been quite a while since I've posted here. I was in luck. No entitled parents in sight for so long, but looks like my luck ran way out yesterday. Here we go. EM is entitled mum, EK, spawn of Satan, DD, decent dad, AM, amazing manager. Alright, let's dive into some context here. So in my city, amid the whole pandemic, patio dining just started opening in restaurants. I've been super careful during this whole thing, social distancing, the whole bit. Yesterday, I finally decided I wanted to go eat at a restaurant for the first time since March, and this one great restaurant near my house was doing patio dining. I show up and grab a table and place my order. Shortly after my food comes, entitled mum and entitled kid take a seat at the table nearest to me. I really needed to pee, and I had a whole bunch of stuff with me. I'd been running some errands. So I turned to entitled mother and asked if she would mind watching my stuff from her seat while I went to the bathroom. She was super sweet and said, "Oh sure honey, go ahead." And then I went on my way. But then, oh lord, when I came back, I didn't even know what the hell I was looking at. There was the spawn of Satan sitting in my seat with his bare hands shoveling my food into his mouth. All of my bags were rummaged through and full of food from his dirty hands, and entitled mother was just sitting at her table scrolling through her phone. I said, What the hell happened here?" "Oh, hey sweetie, looks like he took a real liking to your food. He just couldn't keep his paws off it, ha ha ha." "Ma'am, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and you don't know where I've been, and I don't know where your child's been, yet you thought we could just share food? He's eaten almost all of it, and what about my stuff?" "Excuse me, you mangy tween. I'm 19, by the way. I wasn't going to say anything, but you don't need to be eating all of that food unless you want to get fatter than you already are. I also don't like you implying that baby has something. As for your stuff, he saw some stupid knickknacks he wanted to play with in there. What did you want me to do about it? Quit whining and eat the rest of your food." Oof. I'm in no way overweight right now, but as someone who struggled real hard with eating disorders in the past, I was seeing red. Oh, and those stupid knickknacks she mentioned? 90% of it were birthday presents from my mum, whose birthday is coming up next weekend. Oh, and all the while as we're arguing, entitled kid is still eating. Entitled mother and I start raising our voices when the amazing manager finally comes out. Entitled mother says, "Thank God you're here. This mangy child is trying to take our food and our stuff right over here. I'd like you to call the police." He looked at entitled mother and then back to me and then back at entitled mother and said, "Ma'am, I'm not sure if you're maybe not in the right mindset. You seem maybe a little unhinged, but I was actually here when this young lady came in and ordered. I actually brought her food out since we're understaffed. I mean, I surely could have mistaken you two if you weren't a hag, but unfortunately for you, At this point, a man arrives, our decent dad. I don't actually know for sure, but I'm assuming he showed up late to join the entitled mother and entitled kid for lunch after work because he was on a call still. He noticed the commotion and with a "here we go again" look, he hung up and came over. I explained the whole situation to him, and the entitled mother gave her twisted side of the story, and he immediately believed me, which makes me think that she definitely pulled some BS like this before. He says, "Honey, let's just leave, please, come on." Amazing manager says, "Yeah, you guys are definitely leaving, but you still have this young lady's meal to pay for, and whatever reimbursement is needed for these items, you ruined unless you'd like the police to be involved." Entitled mother says, "In your dreams? I'm not giving you or this child a penny. Let's go." Grabs the kid and starts leaving, and motions for the decent dad to follow her. Decent dad really silently came up to me and amazing manager and started apologizing profusely, and taking out money from his wallet to give to me. He says, Here, please take this. I'm so sorry. Genuinely, I'm looking into a divorce currently with my lawyer, but she can't know about it just yet. Here, I'm really sorry about your stuff and your food. Please replace everything on me. I'm so sorry." He closed his wallet and left while still apologizing. I felt so bad for that guy. Jeez. I hope he gets out of that situation ASAP. Anyway, I think I find some comfort knowing that entitled mother has a surprise divorce fastball heading her way. That's gonna be a fun time for decent dad, and pure amazement for little old me. Alright, and I think that's where we're going to leave today's episode, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed the content today. If you guys loved watching it as much as I loved making it, I would love for you to subscribe to the channel already if you haven't. Tell me what you thought of it down in the comments below, maybe like the video, who knows. I'd also like to take this time to thank my awesome Patreon and channel members. Without you guys, I don't know what I'd do. I'd probably be homeless on the streets of Ireland, crying Irish dancing all over town. It would just be a mess. But no, for real, you guys are up on the screen now. Thank each and every one of you guys. And if you personally want to join the club yourself, there are links down in the description below. There's also the join button next to the subscribe button. Small monthly fee, but hey, it goes a long way to help me create more awesome content. Well, with that said, guys, I hope you do have a lovely day, night, sleep, evening, day at work, day at school, whatever you're up to. I hope you keep awesome today. You're looking amazing, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.